In this video, we are going to be talking about my favorite component of the exposure triangle, aperture. Not only does aperture control how bright or how dark an image is, but it also is the component that gives us that beautiful, gorgeous, blurry background that we all know and love. Today, I'll be giving you the basics of aperture and how you can get that beautiful blurry background without editing at all. For all the mom photography and mom hacks, make sure that you like this video and subscribe below. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Kayla Brint. I'm a motherhood photographer and founder of Mom Photography School, where I teach moms how to take gorgeous everyday photos of their family. And in Mom Photography School, I really nerd out about aperture, and that's exactly what I'll be explaining in this video. Aperture is one of the components of the exposure triangle. If you're not familiar with the exposure triangle, no worries. I have a video all about it. I'll link to that below. But aperture not only affects the exposure of the image, which is how bright or how dark the image is, it is also the component that gives us that beautiful, gorgeous, blurry background. Or not. Maybe you don't want the blurry background. It is all controlled with aperture. So I knew this was going to happen eventually. At least he's not crying, right? Let's first talk about how aperture controls the exposure of the image. So the aperture is located within the lens itself. It has nothing to do with the camera body. So the hole in the lens, how wide it is or how small it is, that is the aperture. So the bigger the hole, the more light comes in. The smaller the hole, the less light comes in. This is one of the few things in photography that actually makes perfect sense. So theoretically, if your image is too bright, then you can close your aperture. If your image is too dark, then you can open your aperture up to let in more light. Changing the aperture not only affects the exposure or how bright or dark the image is, but it also affects the depth of field of the photo. Have you ever captured an image that was just perfect, but it was too dark or too bright? Let me know in the comments below. Like I said, the aperture also controls the depth of field of the photo. Now, before we dive into what depth of field is, it's important to understand that aperture depth of field has absolutely nothing to do with the camera body itself, but with the lens. So different lenses have different ranges of aperture. So not all lenses' widest aperture is the same. So that is very important to know. Okay, now that we know that aperture is located in the lens, let's look at this pretty graphic of aperture. The smaller the number, the wider the aperture, the hole is bigger, and the blurrier the background will be. So the bigger the number, the smaller the aperture, it has a smaller hole, and the less blurry the background will be. Let me say that again. If you want a blurry background, you put the aperture on the smallest number. That opens it wide up, so it's got a big hole. Don't want any blur? Close your aperture, and that is a larger number. If you've ever found yourself out shooting, or you know you're going to be out taking pictures and forget all of this, no worries. I have an Aperture Cheat Sheet for you, and it's actually a page out of the handbook of Mastering Manual Mode, my signature course. So make sure that you go grab that. I will link it below. So there you have it, a quick overview of aperture. Not only does it affect the exposure, but it also affects the depth of field, which is that gorgeous blurry background. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Also, catch me in the next video where I go over the third component of the exposure triangle, ISO. See you there. Say bye. he's out. This completely exhausted